I thought Disney was finally done desecrating the Skywalker Saga, but it turns out as long as Kathleen Kennedy has a say in it, we will never know peace. Hi y'all, SnarkyJay cosplay here. So this week, out of the Star Wars rumor mill, we got some news that not only is Disney moving forward with a new trilogy, this new trilogy is also going to be titled episodes 10 through 12. Now, this might not seem like that big a deal, but the fact that we finished off on episode 9 meant that the Skywalker Saga was done. But the fact that they're starting off with episode 10 and moving on to 12 means that we're going to get yet another Skywalker Saga trilogy. And we're gonna get into that in just a minute, but first I also want to tell you who they've essentially tapped to write and co-produce this project. They have gotten none other than Simon Kinberg, who is going to write the films, and he's also going to produce them alongside our favorite Kathleen Kennedy, because she just won't let this franchise die. Now, Simon Kinberg's name may or may not sound familiar to you. On one hand, he produced fantastic and well-loved movies like The Martian and Logan. He was also a producer on all 3 Deadpool films, but he was also very much the producer of absolute turds like 2015's The Fantastic Four, X-Men Apocalypse, and perhaps the most unforgivable X-Men movie, X-Men Dark Phoenix. Admittedly, Simon Kinberg is not totally out of his depth here with Star Wars. He was also an executive producer on the Star Wars Rebels series, which is considered to be pretty good. So is my issue here entirely due to Simon Kinberg's involvement? No, I mean, the guy's made a couple of dogs, but the fact that he's the guy who had his hands in Logan, he really did a lot with the 3 Deadpool films, and The Martian is a great movie. So I think that somebody that has that kind of track record and also understands Star Wars, like I said, he was an executive producer on Rebels, this is somebody who seems ripe for the picking to have anything to do with Star Wars. I mean, much better than an activist who prides herself on making men uncomfortable, right? Too soon? And speaking of activists who are making Star Wars movies, this trilogy is completely separate from the other Star Wars movies that we already know are happening. Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy's new Rey movie is going to be completely separate from this next portion of the Skywalker saga, because of course, Rey No-Name Palpatine Skywalker needs her own solo venture, even though the supposed last part of the Skywalker saga was essentially all about her and desecrated the legacy of everything else. And that is my major issue with this. See, when episode 9 came out, most of us were already devastated by episodes 7 and 8. Episode 8 is when things really started going downhill, and episode 9 was perhaps one of the most terrible things I've ever had to see, primarily because it was a bad f***ing movie, but also because I realized it was taking its time in the last step to shit on the legacy of everything George Lucas had created with Star Wars, with the original trilogy and the prequels. Episode 9 was so f***ing bad that it made the prequels look like Citizen Kane, which is really f***ing hard to do. But continuing the Skywalker saga shows us a few things. One, that Disney really does seek to justify the whole
somehow Palpatine returned.
Because now we're having to say, well, somehow the Skywalker saga continues after we were told it was over. Enjoy episodes 10 through 12. It's just never gonna end. But the other thing that I learned is that Kathleen Kennedy will not f***ing dig her claws out of this franchise. We literally rejected the sequel trilogy so hard that that's not even the trilogy that sells the most merch, and an entire Star Wars hotel closed because people weren't attending and were unwilling to pay the exorbitant prices that they wanted, because it wasn't set in the trilogy that we knew and loved. It was based on some new bullshit that none of us cared about. That is how hard the Star Wars fandom has essentially pushed back against the new trilogy. And yet Kathleen Kennedy refuses to listen to anything that anybody says and is so willing to double down and continue with this bullshit. Sure, they've got great talent. Like I said, Simon Kinberg has some big misses, but his hits have hit hard. The guy's got talent. He knows Star Wars, and he's probably a great choice for this. But when he's having to co-produce along with Kathleen Kennedy, as if the Skywalker saga hadn't suffered enough, it should have never gone past episode 6. 1 through 6, that should have been it. And yet they tacked on this bitter piece of shit at the end of it, where they killed off the legacy characters and they just kept beating a dead horse until all you had left was Rey No Name Palpatine Skywalker and an old t-shirt that you decided you no longer wanted to wear anymore. That is where we're at. Earlier this year, I made a video about the fact that sources close to Kathleen Kennedy have said that she refuses to leave Lucasfilm until she can leave on a win. If she thinks another entry to the Skywalker Saga, which is already pretty much dead in the water, is going to be that win, she's gonna have to invent cryogenic freezing to keep herself alive, because she's never gonna end on a win, and therefore she'll never be able to retire from Lucasfilm and will just be stuck seeing pile of shit after pile of shit hit theaters and Disney Plus streaming until the franchise has literally no fans left. That's where we're going. Another Skywalker Saga trilogy could really be the death of Star Wars. And that's all from me. I've been SnarkyJay. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. For more SnarkyJay, be sure to check me out on Instagram, and if you'd like to support me, this channel, and my content creation, do check out and consider subscribing to my Patreon for exclusive photo shoot sets and cosplay content. This month's special sets are Catwoman, Batfleck, and Huntress. You don't want to miss those. I will add links to all of those in the description below, and let me know your thoughts on the upcoming episodes 10 through 12 in the Skywalker Saga in the comments below.